Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel for part 4 of the installment series of misconceptions about OCD recovery. Today I wanted to talk about why acceptance doesn't mean agreement. It's something that we talk about a lot. There's a lot of misunderstanding about it. A lot of people have questions. I probably answer, at least 3 to 5 questions a week regarding this. And I made a Facebook post in our free Facebook group, which I definitely recommend joining if you're not a member of. We almost have 16,000 members in there. There's about 8 or 9 moderators. We try our best to go through and tell people about reassurance and do stuff like that. And it really is a great place for the OC community. So, before I go any further, please subscribe and like this video. Let me know in the comments, which I'm assuming there'll probably be quite a few, maybe something you're dealing with and, how can I accept that? Usually when it comes down to like serious stuff like murder or any of those really big hot topics where people think there's no way I could accept myself or other people. And this is what it's important to talk about. I keep noticing the back of my hair sticking up there because I don't have any hairspray in, which is odd for me because I'm kind of a diva and I use like 2 bottles of hairspray a month, which is not good for my scalp. So let's use an example such as a serial killer. So when we have someone who commits murder, okay, and maybe commits murder against someone that we love, and that scenario this happens to a lot of people. People have their sons and daughters murdered. They have other family members like nieces or nephews, even their dogs and their parents and stuff like that, their spouses. So, when it happens to us, this is a real event that's really difficult for a lot of people to look at. The reason why we always use the murderers is because there's such a high emotional construct attached to it. A lot of things are based on good and evil. And as I always talk about, the concept of good and evil is very biblical and religious in its basically where the terminologies come from. This is why I talk about the religious aspects of good and evil and looking back to the Quran or, the New and the Old Testament. And then when you go to different cultures and talk to different people, like say America versus say where Momin lives in Pakistan, when we talk privately and we talk about jokes, we have 2 totally different views on what he might think is acceptable as a joke and maybe what me being someone from New Jersey, more of like a blunt guy, sees as a joke and doesn't think twice about it. So it's not as simple as this is good and this is bad. Now murder in the vast majority of places is considered by most people a very, very evil thing, and the person is evil themselves. And it is understandable why people would think that, you would think that if someone commits murder against your father, that you would definitely be very, very remorseful, but very angry and vengeful against that person. I saw a really good documentary one time of a father who lost his son to a murder, a gang shooting. I don't think it was gang related, but it was a murder. And the murderer was having a retrial because he was a teenager when he was convicted. And they have new rules, but anyway, he was put back on trial, 15 years later, and the father was in court and he was a mess. And the judge was saying how it's ruined his life and stuff like that. Now, the event itself is a tragic event, but it didn't need to ruin his life. And his life is also not ruined because he might still have aspects during the day, even if it's for a moment or two, that he might enjoy. This is a very hard concept for people to see because we don't have to agree with that. So if I was the father, and this is easy for me to say right here because I'm conceptualizing in theory of what I would do, but I am pretty sure that because I've thought about this at times, I would be laying in bed and think if someone murdered my wife, if someone murdered Erica or my mother, or my sister, or anyone else in my family I'm very close to, how would I respond to that? And I think immediately I would be very angry, since anger is something that has affected me, which comes from a belief system. Remember, anger is a natural emotion that we have, but humans have a catastrophic viewpoint on anger because their beliefs are based off of should, musts, and nots, and then oughts. So if someone, this is literally, I'm telling you exactly what I thought. If someone murdered Erica at a stoplight, maybe Erica accidentally cut him off and they pulled up to the window and they shot Erica 3 times and killed her. I think over time, in the beginning, I would be very irrational. And as I tried really hard to slow things down, it even gets me emotional even thinking about it. I think I would slow things down and try and think the best as I could, what led that person to do that? And it's not about them thinking it was okay. What are the things that maybe went wrong in their lives? Maybe just their genetics and environment. That's just the way they see the world. They're very angry and they hate everyone. This is, it's not as simple as, people say they look at someone like a Ted Bundy or a Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, or John Wayne Gacy, and they think that these people are pure evil. But what they're not remembering is these people have a particular set of genetics and DNA. And then remember, as my favorite quote is, genetics loads the trigger and lifestyle and environment pull the trigger. It's a great quote by Brene Brown. And it's really important to talk about that because it's not as simple as that person being evil. And when we have really strong values and morals that we attach to ourselves conditionally, this doesn't mean that you can't have faith and you can't have all these things like I talk about, but it's very easy to go down that route of like, this person is the epitome of evil. And they have what's called the bad seed theory, which half of PhDs or doctors that do research on serial killers agree with, and then half people think it's ludicrous. I think it's ludicrous too. Do I think that someone was born inherently bad? No. Do I think that someone might have been born to be predisposed to being a sociopathic serial killer? Sure, but does that mean they were born evil? I would say no, because that would go into the epitome of 100% good and 100% bad. And that obviously wasn't the case for Ted Bundy, since he had likable traits that led all sorts of women to him. You know, he was charming, he was good looking, he was a smooth talker, he was high in the political status. He had a lot of things going for him that people liked. And if you watched any of the documentaries on Ted Bundy, people would be like, one of my favorite ones was a politician literally said, the police chief said, if that guy came and took my daughter out to dinner, I knew she would be safe with him. About Ted Bundy. So it's just not as clear and cut as like this person is inherently good and this person is inherently bad. But it also is important to realize that we don't have to agree. The reason why I talked about all this is because it is important to premise this conversation. This might be a little bit longer of a video for the misconception videos, is that we don't have to agree with the acts. And I'm not saying if this happened to you, this murder of your spouse, you're going to immediately snap into that, but you can work on that over time. And you probably would still be sad throughout your life and remorseful, and it would have a huge impact on your life. I'm not saying Erica being murdered would not have an impact on my life. It would have a major impact on my life. You know, I would get very sad. Maybe I would go into a slight spell of depression and maybe my OCD would flare up. But I could still work on my beliefs and move forward. But because people think that you need to agree, acceptance is agreement. So they're saying, so you're telling me I have to agree with the thoughts about being a serial killer. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that in the off chance if something happened, maybe you, because you know, OCD can latch in ways that it is impossible to try and figure it out because looking for certainty. So let's say you have a health fear, but then a fear of harm. So you're like, what if I have a seizure when I'm driving and I black out and I kill a family on the road? Fear of rejection by society, fear of going to jail. So what they might do is they stop driving. They don't drive anymore because, oh, I don't want to have a seizure and pass out and kill someone. Someone definitely has that exact thing I'm talking about. Maybe you might be the person watching this. So obviously not driving needs to go away. You'll have to experience going into the car again and moving with uncertainty and driving and feeling all those emotions. So, but even if that happened and you had a seizure and you passed out and you actually murdered a family, you know, manslaughter, you would definitely not like that. The court would ridicule you. People would definitely probably not understand. They would pin you as an evil person. So all these different factors of acceptance. Unconditional other acceptance of the other people calling you evil. Unconditional life acceptance if you had a seizure and passed out and killed someone. Unconditional self-acceptance that you had a seizure and passed out and killed a family. Not going to happen overnight, but you can work on doing that. Even if you're in jail for 25 years, you can work on that while you're in your jail cell and you could do other stuff like that. Everything I'm saying right now is probably highly triggering for some people, and it's really good for you to hear this because we don't run from triggers. I don't put trigger warnings unless it's certain scenarios where, you know, you don't want to take someone who's, you know, never been exposed and they're like absolutely death afraid of, say, you know, HOCD or POCD, and you don't want to put them in the highest exposure because they're just going to fail more than likely. So there needs to be a hierarchy of working with this stuff. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think about this beard growing out like this long because my wife no longer wants me to grow it out anymore, but I keep making excuses. That's what I do. I'm like, oh, she just walked in the door right now. How funny is that? So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to write down below and have a great day.